Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. Holy crap, Riot have dropped a ton of information on us today with their new Champion Roadmap video that also contained information about their preseason plans for 2023. There's a ton to get through, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it, starting of course with the Champion Roadmap that Riot have put out. Now, Riot have talked a lot about our next oncoming champion, to the point that we even know their name and title. K'Sante, the Pride of Nezuma, is the next champion to be released. He is going to be a top lane tank hailing from the city of Nezuma, which is in Shurima. Now, Nezuma crucially never bent the knee to Azir in over 500 years, has carved out an existence for itself around an oasis by fighting a ton of very scary, deadly monsters that inhabit the area. K'Sante has actually killed one of the most scary of those monsters that's ever been cited, and used it to create an Tifoso. I don't quite know how to pronounce the word, I'd have to watch the video again, but either way, these are weapons that are made from these monsters. They're just big, blunt instruments of death, but they can be shattered to create blades that you've carved within them, and eventually the weapons will regenerate themselves back into the big, blunt form. This is a potentially really cool gameplay hook for a main tank. You have this big, blunt instrument serving as your primary means of offense and defense, up until the point at which you shatter it, sacrificing some of that defense for more offense. If you've played competitive Pokemon, Shell Smash is basically what I'm getting at here. It's a really cool gameplay hook. I can't wait to see how the character behaves in-game, and I also can't wait to see what we learn about the world of Runeterra from his goings-on and what he gets up to. Following K'Sante's release is going to be the Aurelion Sol CGU, and Riot have shown us off a couple of new abilities that Aurelion Sol will have at his disposal. I think it's completely bizarre, and I don't know that it's going to do any better than his previous kit, honestly. His Q now breathes fire for as long as you have mana and will follow the cursor. It looks like a channeled ability, and it doesn't look like you can move while doing it, which means that Aurelion Sol will really have to pick a time and place to actually start channeling this ability to get DPS down. It will have to have extremely high damage numbers, but fundamentally it means that as Aurelion Sol, you're basically just walking around waiting for a safe place to start spewing your fire, and that doesn't look like a very fun gameplay hook. I'm gonna be real with you guys. He still has a flight ability that he now no longer needs escape velocity to use. He can just press the button and start flying a long distance, similarly to Live, but he can press Q while he's in midair, spewing fire at enemies while he flies by. Again, I feel like this is a niche situation more than anything else. It may come up once in a blue moon, but I can't see an application for this in-game. Now, if Aurelion Sol's Q is going to have an extremely long range, if it scales with his champion level, for example, I can see him maybe behaving like an artillery mage, finding a place safely behind lines in order to start blowing fire at nearby enemies, but I just can't see a use for this Aurelion Sol kit. I feel like all that Riot are doing are throwing out a perfectly good, workable kit that's niche, but still very well designed, and replacing it with a niche kit that is probably still going to be workable, and which doesn't even do that much to convey Aurelion Sol's theme. He's a big, scary space dragon, and honestly, what's bigger and scarier than abilities like Voice of Light or Star Surge, especially a cross-map Star Surge where you're detonating an entire galaxy on top of the entire enemy team. That's way more impactful than currently what I've seen in Aurelion Sol's kit. It feels a little unfair, though, to judge it before we've seen it in its entirety, so watch this space, but right now I am not impressed with it at all. Right, I've also talked a little bit about the Neeko and Syndra mid-scope updates. They are next on the mid-scope update roster, and I have to say I'm extremely excited for these updates. I think they both could absolutely use one. Syndra, I feel, has a very strong theme, and does do some things to convey it, but has also had balancing issues, and fundamentally is more a ball mage than a gravity mage, which is always what she was supposed to be. She's more about manipulating her dark spheres, rather than manipulating champions and items and things on the map, and right, you know, she doesn't really get that feeling of gravity mage off. I would love to see her taken back to the lab and given a slightly better gameplay hook. And Neeko's theme is extremely strong, but her kit is less about using her sneaky shenanigans and more about just playing a traditional burst mage, which is really disappointing to me in all honesty, because I was really excited for Neeko because of her chameleonic abilities and her clones, but instead you just kind of throw Tangle Barbs out and then press all your other buttons if it lands. Not exactly that interesting. Really excited to see that she's getting a mid-scope update as well. But you guys aren't here for any of that. You're here to hear about the newer champions that will also be coming out. The next champion that will follow K'Sante is going to be an Ixtali enchanter. People have been wanting a male enchanter champion for years now, and people have also wanted more champions from Ixtal, and Riot are basically killing two birds with one stone by saying, here you go, a male Ixtali enchanter champion. We have no other information about them whatsoever. The champion is in very early development, but he is still going to be coming out before the next champion that they talked about, so do keep that in mind. The champion to follow this Ixtali enchanter is going to be a new Darkin champion. We have finally gotten confirmation on Darkin number 4. Keep in mind that in the lore, there are only intended to be 5 Darkin remaining. It is going to vary depending on whether or not Riot actually want to stick with that, but until we are proven otherwise, I'm going to assume that there are only 5 Darkin remaining. So this is Darkin number 4. The Darkin is trapped in a pair of daggers, and a lot of the hints Riot have given us imply something to do with dogs. They talked about players hounding him, throw me a bone, barking. It sounds like a dog that has daggers. I'm picturing more of a jackal-like character like Nasus who has the daggers instead, but we literally have to see because we don't know anything else about them other than the daggers, which Riot did spoil for us. They've also let us know that this is going to be a jungling assassin, which unfortunately conflicts a little bit with Kayn and Rost, but that's sort of fine, I think, and I'm excited to see where this character goes, honestly more so than I'm excited about either of the other two, so we'll see how this goes. I'm excited to see more. Finally, the Ahri ASU is coming. She has a ton of skins, which is why it's taking her a lot longer to actually be released, but Riot did show off her actual default design, and I'm a little disappointed. I really wanted her Ruined King appearance to show up in League of Legends. I think that that design is really, really cool, and instead they opted for something that's more akin to her classic outfit, but they just modernized it a little bit. I don't hate her classic outfit, but I do think it's a little silly, and I would have loved to have seen her Ruined King design come to League of Legends instead. I do think the animation work will help it a little bit, but it fundamentally doesn't feel like there's that much that's going to be changing for Ahri, which is a little disappointing, but either way, it will be coming sooner rather than later, and I am at least interested to see what her animations are going to be like, even if her appearance doesn't change altogether too much. And that was all just the first half of what Riot were talking about today. They also had an entire half of the video dedicated to gameplay, especially paired alongside an article that was actually leaked a day early by the Garena servers, but that has now gone live. Specifically, Riot are trying to focus on the jungle in Preseason 2023. They want to make it much more of a attractive lane for people to play, because right now it just really is not one. It is a very difficult lane to play in because you have to hunt for your own farm, you have to go to the farm, it won't come to you, you might die to the farm, there's a very limited champion pool you can play, and on top of everything else, you're getting potentially unjustly flamed by your teammates the entire time you're trying to play this role. It's very thankless, and Riot are trying to make it more attractive. I think that there are some things that Riot are getting right here. I think finding a way for junglers to donate buffs over to their allies, but also not give up the farm that they would get from killing the camp, is a really interesting way to try and improve things. I think the improved patience rules is going to be a big change in order to help newer junglers figure out when a camp is likely to reset, and Riot have other improvements that they're exploring as well. There's more to come. I'm not really sure what to expect, but I'm hoping they don't overcomplicate or undercomplicate the jungle. The biggest thing, though, and this isn't talked about in the video, but in the article, is the introduction of pets. Now, Riot have given us very little information about how they work other than you will have a pet in the jungle, the pet will help you clear camps, and after a certain point, the pet will get strong enough to empower your champion with some kind of effect. Now, to me, this sounds very similar to the way the current jungle item system works. You buy a jungle item, you do certain things with it, and eventually the item goes away and your smite upgrades itself permanently. I see the pets working in a similar fashion. You buy a jungle item, which gives you an assigned pet. Let's say you buy a Stalker's Blade and you get a little wolf buddy to follow you around. The wolf buddy helps you clear camps, and after you've done a certain number of camps or smote a certain number of times or accomplished a goal, the wolf guy disappears to empower you with the permanent bonuses of Chilling Smite. I think that would be kind of a fun way to convey it. It does help junglers clear early on in the game, and it potentially leads to some more interesting designs besides just the 2 smites we currently have available. That said, Riot have also talked a lot about jungling item choices, and I really don't want them to bring back jungle items. I'm hoping that however they do these pets, that they work in a similar fashion to the current item system, because I don't want the gains from the current jungle item system to go away. I think it's really elegant how it currently works, and I don't want Riot to overcomplicate the jungle item system, especially with these brand new pets. Riot also talked about the Chemtech Drake and Rift are coming back. I'm really excited about this. I loved both of them, and even though they're coming back in a different form, I'm just kind of happy to be back at 6 Drakes. They have changed rather dramatically. New Chemtech Soul just gives you damage reduction and more damage when at low health. It no longer revives you. This is a little weird to me because it does feel like it's just a souped up version of the Chemtech buffs that you get by collecting Chemtech Drakes. So in that regard, it's not very interesting or exciting, and a similar thing is present for the Chemtech Rift, which which all it does is mutate the plants to increase their effects. So Blast Cone can knock you back twice as far as before, Scryer's Bloom gives you movement speed towards champions that were revealed with it, that kind of thing. I think it's an interesting gameplay hook, but it doesn't fundamentally change the Rift too much, which is a little disappointing when you consider a lot of the other changes that other elemental rifts have. I acknowledge that there's a very limited amount of design space that Riot can do for both the Chemtech Soul and Chemtech Rift, but I also feel like these designs are extremely safe, which maybe they want given how poorly received the Chemtech Rift and Chemtech Soul were before. I'm not a big fan, but we'll see how they play out once we actually get them in game. I'm just hoping for more map effects besides just the mutated plants on the Rift. Riot have also talked about a couple of other small tweaks. They want better communications in-game, which is technically a buff to jungling as well. They have a better ping wheel with a couple of more ping options on it, including engage, freeze, and push. I don't necessarily like this. I feel like the current ping wheel we've sort of adapted to work in those contexts. For example, caution pinging a wave as a way to tell your ally stop hitting it, or pinging on my way as a way of saying I'm about to engage. But I can't say that more communication options is worse than fewer communication options, so I think it's probably going to be fine. I do, however, think that some of the things that Riot want to add to their communications, such as being able to plan out macro objectives, isn't common knowledge. I haven't encountered many players who actually know what a freeze is or how to do it. I haven't encountered many players that have a solid understanding of macro gameplay. In that regard, while I think that these tools will be very well used in the upper echelons of the game, I don't think they're going to be very good in lower tiers of play, and even in pre-made 5s, if you're playing casually, you probably won't use any of these features. I don't know how to feel about them, but again, more communication options probably isn't as bad as fewer communication options. Finally, there are some small tweaks to vision where it will better show where your ward will end up when you're placing your ward over a wall, and show that you can swap vision trinkets and at least make that more clear. So that's sort of an easy win in my eyes. Finally, Riot gave us an update on the skin poll, which came out recently, and they have confirmed that Gothic is now a skin line called Fright Night. It's very Tim Burton-esque Nightmare Before Christmas, Halloween, sort of like slasher films, but taken in a more comedic, I don't want to say comedic approach, but a more lighthearted approach where you still have people wearing hockey masks with chainsaws, but also you kind of get the sense that this is just more of a spooky Halloween in between slasher film and then like our current Halloween line of skins. Those aren't scary at all. Slasher films are very scary. This exists somewhere in the middle. I think it's an interesting take on the skin line. It doesn't feel very gothic, though. Admittedly, there wasn't a lot that Riot could really grab onto with regards to just the theme of gothic, but it does feel like this is going to make some players really upset with the direction that the skin line has taken, as opposed, it feels like a new skin line rather than a retrain of gothic, but again, there wasn't that much that gothic really had going for it beyond its champs wearing goth clothes, so I can understand why they would make a massive overhaul. Whew, and that is going to be it for all of the changes previewed today. You guys will have to let me know what you think of any or all of it down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, especially on the newer champions or the jungle changes, especially if you're a long-term jungler. Let me know all of that down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I put a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.